Since it is beyond the scope of this presentation to provide an in-depth discussion of the teaching of Jesus and the beliefs and practices of his first followers on matters of violence, killing, and war, a few brief remarks must suffice. First, it's easy to forget that Jesus was born into a very violent world. His country was occupied and oppressed by a brutal Roman army, but Jesus did not join nor did he support the anti-Roman Jewish guerrillas fighting against them. Indeed, he told his contemporaries, "Put the sword away. Those who live by the sword will die by it. And you have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I tell you to love your enemies." As they tortured him to death on a cross, Jesus forgave his Jewish accusers and Roman executioners. He preached not the destruction of opponents, but mercy. Not the infliction of suffering and pain on enemies, but patient, nonviolent endurance. Second, it is clear how the early church interpreted Jesus' message about and practice of nonviolence. Without exception, all early church leaders rejected violence, killing, and war, even in self-defense. For example, Church Father Tertullian wrote, by taking away Peter's sword at the time of Jesus' arrest, the Lord disarmed every soldier. The earliest Christian catechism known, a book called the Didache, lists soldiering as a profession forbidden for Christians. It teaches that any soldier wishing to be baptized must first resign his commission. We actually have the trial record of a young 3rd century Christian named Maximilian of Tebessa in modern-day Algeria. At the age of 21, he was drafted into the Roman army. Telling the magistrate, "I will not be a soldier of this world, for I am a soldier of Christ," he refused induction. Maximilian was convicted of treason and beheaded. The Christian community proclaimed him a saint, a martyr for the faith. The refusal of Christians like Maximilian to participate in Roman violence and war was one of the key reasons the church was persecuted. Christians were considered unpatriotic atheists because they refused to worship Roman divinities. They were thought to be disloyal because they refused military service. Even as late as the 4th century, a young soldier whose father was an army officer converted to Christianity. When Martin of Tours was baptized, he resigned his commission, saying, "I am now a soldier of Christ. It is forbidden for me to fight." Third, we know that church teaching and practice began to change only in the time of Constantine in the 4th century. After the probably apocryphal Edict of Milan, which recognized and legalized Christianity, in many ways the church rather quickly aligned itself with the Roman Empire. For the first time, the historical record provides evidence of Christian participation in the emperor's wars, specifically when the empire seemed threatened by so-called barbarians, who were perceived by many as a threat not only to the empire, but to the church as well. The growing participation in war on the part of baptized Christians created a bit of a crisis. Why was it now morally permissible for Christians to engage in activities that for close to 3 centuries were condemned as immoral and unchristlike by church leaders? For 3 centuries, Christians had, to use modern terminology, they had practiced pacifism. Many who were killed for refusing to participate in violence and war were honored as martyrs of the faith. So why the change? Why was Christian participation in violence, killing, and war now acceptable? Enter St. Augustine of Hippo, one of the most influential thinkers in human history.